Clean it! Clean it with your tongue right now!
Triplets being humiliated and cries. Kael Ashford had buried his heart 3 years ago with his daughter. But when he saw a small girl forced to her knees, told to lick a woman's shoe clean, something inside him clawed its way back to life. But that moment was still an hour away. Hi there, friend. Thank you for stopping by to listen to this wonderful story today. While you relax and ready to enjoy the story, please hit that subscribe button, thumbs up, and make sure you share this story to your loved ones. And please do not forget to tell me where you are watching from in the comments below. Now let's get started. Right now, Kael stood on the 53rd floor of the Ashford Holdings Tower, staring through a wall of glass at the city of Crestmore below. The skyline stretched out like a kingdom he no longer wanted to rule. His reflection ghosted back at him. Sharp suit, sharper jaw, eyes that hadn't truly focused on anything in 3 years. "Your 10 a.m. is here," Thane said from the doorway, voice low and familiar. Kael didn't turn. "Cancel it. It's the 9th meeting you've canceled this month. Then make it 10. Thane hesitated. He'd worked for Kael long enough to know when to push and when to leave him alone. This was the latter. He withdrew without a word, and the door clicked softly shut. Kael's fingers curled against the cold glass. Somewhere far below, people were living, loving, laughing. He used to be one of them, but that was before Iris, before the hospital rooms that smelled like antiseptic and false hope, before the machines that beeped her life away in measured intervals, before he realized that all his money, all his power, all his desperation couldn't buy one more sunrise with his little girl. He closed his eyes. "Daddy, will you carry me? I'm too tired to walk." Her voice was fading. Every month, a little quieter in his mind. He was forgetting the exact way her fingers felt when she grabbed his hand. And that, more than her death, was killing him. He turned from the window and walked to his desk. On it sat a single-framed photo, face down. He never looked at it, but he never moved it either. Kael Ashford had become a man who lived in the space between remembering and forgetting. It was a cold, narrow place, but it was safe. He had no meetings today, no lunch plans, no life really, just the slow, silent work of surviving another day without her. He grabbed his coat. Maybe a walk would help. Maybe motion would trick his body into feeling like he still existed. He left the tower and descended into the world. Across the city, in a cramped third-floor apartment in Lowfield, Lorna Cartwright was waging a war against time, chaos, and 3 very loud children. "Remy, if you put that sock on your sister's head one more time." "But Mom, she thinks it's funny." "I do not." Dove yanked the sock off and threw it at Silas, who ducked. It sailed across the room and landed in the kitchen sink. Silas cackled. Dove's bottom lip trembled. "Oh no, baby, no." Lorna swooped in, crouching beside Dove and brushing her dark curls out of her face. "You're okay. Remy's just being silly. Right, Remy?" Remy crossed his arms. She laughed the first time. "Remy." "Sorry, Dove." Dove sniffled, then whispered, "It's okay." Lorna exhaled and leaned her forehead against the kitchen counter. The apartment was a disaster. Toys scattered like shrapnel. Dishes stacked in the sink. A mountain of laundry she'd been meaning to fold for 3 days. She was already running late, and she still had to get all 3 of them dressed, fed, and her phone buzzed. She grabbed it. Missed call. Little Lamb's daycare. Her stomach dropped. She called back immediately, already knowing what was coming. "Ms. Cartwright." The director's voice was clipped, professional, and absolutely fatal. "I'm very sorry, but due to your overdue balance, we can't accept the children today." "Wait, please. I can pay tomorrow. I just need one more." "Policy is policy." "I'm sorry." The line went dead. Lorna stood there, phone in hand, the world tilting just slightly off its axis. She had a shift in 40 minutes. At Gleamway Commercial Complex. If she missed it, she'd get written up. Another write-up meant termination. Termination meant no rent. No rent meant, no, she wouldn't let it go that far. She looked at Remy, Silas, and Dove. Her 3 bright, stubborn, beautiful reasons for waking up every single day, and made a decision she knew was risky but unavoidable. All right, my loves. Change of plans. 3 pairs of eyes turned to her. You're coming to work with Mama today. Remy's face lit up. Really? Really? But listen to me. She knelt down, her voice firm but soft. You have to be on your very best behavior. No running. No loud voices. You stay exactly where I tell you to stay. Understand? All 3 nodded solemnly. Lorna cupped Dove's small face in her hands. The youngest, the softest, the one who still believed the world was kind. You're going to be so good, aren't you, sweetheart? Dove nodded, her brown eyes wide and trusting. Lorna kissed her forehead, then Silas's, then Remy's. Let's go. The Gleamway Commercial Complex rose from the heart of Crestmore like a glass cathedral. Marble floors, vaulted ceilings, the scent of wealth in every polished surface. Lorna had been cleaning its floors for 2 years. She was invisible here, a shadow in a uniform, wiping down the messes of people who never looked her in the eye. She pushed through the service entrance with all 3 children in tow, her cleaning cart rattling quietly ahead of her. Stay close, she whispered. Remy held Silas's hand. Silas held Dove's. A small, silent chain. Her supervisor, gone, spotted her immediately. Cartwright. His eyes flicked to the children. Are those? Daycare fell through, Lorna said quickly. It's just for today. I'll keep them out of sight. Gone frowned, but there was sympathy in it. He had kids too. Fine. But the new manager's doing rounds today. Morandi. She's not like the last one. Lorna's chest tightened. Understood. She led the triplets to a small storage alcove tucked off the main lobby. Barely big enough for her cart and a stack of supplies, but it would have to do. She spread out a thin blanket, gave them coloring books, a box of crayons, and a bag of crackers. You stay right here. Right here. I'll be just outside that door. If you need me, you whisper my name. Okay? Okay, Mama, Remy said, already opening a crayon box. Silas was sorting colors. Dove clutched a stuffed rabbit she'd brought from home. Lorna kissed each of their heads and stepped into the lobby. The hum of the building wrapped around her. Voices discussing quarterly projections, the hiss of espresso machines, the sharp click of designer heels on marble. She began her work, wiping glass, polishing fixtures, making the world shine for people who would never know her name. She was halfway through the West Wing when she heard it. A bright, delighted giggle. Dove. Lorna's head snapped up. Through the glass partition, she saw all 3 of her children, outside the storage room, running toward the decorative fountain in the center of the atrium. No! She dropped her spray bottle and ran. But she wasn't fast enough, because just as Dove reached the edge of the fountain, a sharp, cold voice sliced through the air like a blade. Stop! Right there! Lorna's blood turned to ice. Standing near the fountain, tall, angular, dressed in a black suit that looked like weaponized elegance, was Vex Morandi, the new manager. Her arms were crossed. Her eyes were cold, and she was staring directly at the triplets like they were insects that had crawled onto her marble. Lorna's heart hammered in her chest as she hurried forward, breathless. I'm so sorry. They're mine, they're with me. I'll get them out of. Vex's gaze shifted to her. Slow. Deliberate. You brought children into my building? Daycare fell through. It's just for today. I promise they won't. They already have. Vex's voice was quiet. And that made it worse. She took a step forward. The triplets huddled together, suddenly small and afraid. Lorna moved between them and Vex instinctively, her hands shaking. "Please, I'll take them back. Right now." But Vex wasn't looking at her anymore. She was looking down, at her shoe. A small, dark stain marred the polished black leather just above the toe. Lorna followed her gaze, and her stomach dropped. Dove's juice box. She must have squeezed it too hard. A few drops had splattered onto the floor, and onto Vex Morandi's shoe. The silence that followed was suffocating. Vex looked up. Her smile was thin and sharp as a scalpel. "Well," she said softly, "isn't that unfortunate? Have you ever felt powerless in front of someone who had all the control? Drop a comment. You're not alone. And don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us to grow." Vex Morandi did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. Power, real power, was never loud. It was cold, controlled. It was the kind of quiet that made the air go still. She looked down at her stained shoe, then slowly, so slowly it felt like a sentencing, lifted her gaze to the triplets. "Which one of you," she said softly, "did this?" Dove took a tiny step backward. Her rabbit clutched to her chest. Her eyes were wide, glassy with fear. Lorna moved instantly. "It was an accident. I'll clean it. Right now. Please just let me." "I didn't ask you." Vex's voice was a scalpel. "I asked them." Remy stepped forward, his small chin lifted. "It was me." "No," Silas interrupted, his voice shaking but defiant. "It was me." Dove said nothing. She just stared at the woman in black, trembling. Vex's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Brave little liars," she murmured. Then her eyes settled on Dove. "But I know it was you." Lorna's breath caught. "She's 7 years old. Please. Old enough to learn consequences." Vex took a single step forward. The click of her heel on marble echoed like a gavel. She looked down at Dove. "You stained my shoe." Dove nodded, tears spilling over. "Then you'll clean it." Lorna's heart slammed against her ribs. "I'll clean it. I'll buy you new ones. Just tell me what they cost, You'll be quiet." Vex didn't even glance at her. Her attention was fixed solely on the little girl with the tear-streaked face. "Go on, sweetheart. Clean it." Dove looked up at her mother, confused. Lorna's voice cracked. "Baby, don't. With your tongue." The words landed like stones in deep water. For a moment, no one moved. Lorna felt the world tilt and fracture. "No," she whispered. Then louder. "No." She stepped between Vex and her daughter, her hands shaking but her voice steadier now. "You will not speak to my child that way. You will not. You're a cleaner, Miss Cartwright." Vex's tone was ice and venom. "Your job is to clean messes, and your child made one. So unless you want to be escorted out of this building permanently, along with your paycheck, I suggest you step aside." Lorna stood frozen. She had $12 in her bank account. Rent was due in 4 days. If she lost this job, Vex leaned in slightly. "Your choice." Lorna felt her knees weaken, her vision blurred. She looked down at Dove, at Remy, at Silas, 3 faces staring up at her, waiting for her to fix this, waiting for her to protect them, and she had no power to do it. "Mama?" Dove's small voice was a whisper. Lorna's tears came hot and silent. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." She stepped aside. Across the lobby, near the glass entrance to the East Wing, Kael Ashford had just walked in. He'd come to Gleamway on a whim. Thane mentioned a contract needed signing at one of the offices upstairs. Kael told him to handle it, but Thane insisted. Something about optics, relationships, all the things Kael used to care about. So here he was, walking through a building he barely remembered owning a stake in. He moved through the atrium with his hands in his pockets, his mind elsewhere. Somewhere cold. Somewhere 3 years ago. But then he heard it. A child crying. His body stopped before his mind caught up. He turned and saw her. A little girl. No more than 7. Dark curls falling around a face streaked with tears. She was kneeling on the marble floor, in front of a woman in a black suit. Kael's breath stilled. The woman, tall, sharp-featured, imperious, was speaking. He couldn't hear the words from where he stood, but he didn't need to. He saw the little girl look up at her mother, saw the mother's face, anguished, broken, nod once, saw the woman in black point down at her shoe. And then, the little girl lowered her head and pressed her tongue to the leather. Kael's vision tunneled. His heart, that dead and buried thing, lurched violently in his chest. He saw Iris kneeling in a hospital gown, too weak to stand, trying so hard to be brave. Iris looking up at him with trust in her eyes, believing he could fix anything. Iris small and fragile and helpless. His feet moved. He didn't remember deciding to walk, but suddenly he was crossing the lobby, his stride long and sharp, his hands trembling at his sides. "Stop!" His voice cut through the atrium like a whip crack. Every head turned. Vex Morandi looked up, irritation flickering across her face. "Excuse me, this is a private." I said stop. Kael reached them in 3 more strides. He didn't look at Vex. He looked at the little girl. She was still on her knees. Her lips trembled. Her tongue had barely touched the shoe, but the humiliation, the fear, was already carved into her. Kael crouched down. Slowly, carefully, he met her eyes. Brown, wide, shattered, and something inside him cracked wide open. "Hey," he said softly. His voice was hoarse. "You don't have to do that." Dove stared at him, confused, afraid. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're okay now." He reached out, slowly, like she was made of glass, and gently helped her to her feet. Her small hand was cold in his. He turned to Vex, and the look on his face could have leveled buildings. "Who?" he said quietly. "Do you think you are?" Vex blinked. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her expression. "I'm the manager of this facility." "And you are?" "Kael Ashford." The name hit like a thunderclap. Vex's face went pale. "I own 40% of this complex," Kael continued, his voice low and lethal. "Which means I own 40% of your job. And right now, I'm trying very hard to think of a reason not to end it." Vex opened her mouth, closed it. Her confidence bled away like water through a sieve. Kael turned to Lorna. She was standing a few feet away, her arms wrapped around Remy and Silas, her face streaked with tears and shame. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Kael saw everything. The exhaustion, the love, the fierce, desperate pride of a mother who would have done anything, endured anything, to keep her children safe. He saw himself, 3 years ago, holding Iris's hand in a sterile room. Powerless. His throat tightened. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry I didn't get here sooner." Lorna stared at him, stunned. And Kael Ashford, billionaire, fortress ghost, felt a tear slide down his face. He didn't wipe it away. He looked down at Dove, still holding his hand, and knelt again. "You did nothing wrong," he told her. "Do you hear me?" "Nothing." Dove nodded, silent tears falling. Kael's chest heaved. His vision blurred. He hadn't cried since the funeral, but he was crying now. Behind him, Vex stammered something. An excuse, a justification, but Kael didn't hear it. He stood, still holding Dove's hand, and turned to Thane, who had appeared at the edge of the scene, phone already in hand. "Get her out of here," Kael said quietly, "and make sure she never works in this city again." Thane nodded once. "Consider done." Vex's voice rose in protest, but security was already moving in. Kael didn't watch her leave. He turned back to Lorna. She was staring at him like he was something impossible, something she didn't have words for. "Thank you," she whispered. Kael shook his head. "Don't thank me." His voice was raw. "I should have done more." Lorna didn't respond. She just pulled Dove into her arms and held her tight. Remy and Silas pressed close, and Kael stood there, in the middle of the gleaming lobby, surrounded by strangers and silence and the echo of a little girl's tears. He felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. He felt alive, and it hurt. God, it hurt. But he didn't want it to stop. Have you ever witnessed an injustice and wished you'd done more? Tell us in the comments. Sometimes one voice is all it takes. Lorna didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her narrow bed in the Lowfield apartment, staring at the wall, replaying the day in her mind like a film she couldn't pause. Dove's face, Vex's voice, the cold marble under her daughter's knees. And then him, Kael Ashford. She didn't know his name at first, not until Vex had gone pale and stammered it like a curse she couldn't take back. Kael Ashford, owner of half the skyline. A man whose name appeared in Forbes articles and charity galas and business journals she'd never read. A man who had knelt beside her daughter and cried. Lorna wrapped her arms around herself and exhaled slowly. She should feel grateful. She was grateful. But underneath the gratitude was something darker. Something that sat heavy in her chest like a stone. Shame. Because he had seen her powerless. He had seen her step aside and let her child kneel. He had seen her fail. She closed her eyes, but the image didn't fade. Dove's small hands, her trembling lip, the way she looked up at Lorna and asked, "Mama?" And Lorna had done nothing. A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, as if the walls might judge her for it. In the next room, the triplets were asleep. She'd held them for an hour after they got home. Remy asked if the sad man was a superhero. Silas asked if they'd get in trouble again. Dove just held her rabbit and didn't say a word. Lorna had tucked them in, kissed their foreheads, and told them everything was going to be okay. She didn't know if that was true, but it was what mothers said. The next morning, Lorna returned to Gleamway. She half expected to be fired, but when she clocked in, Gon just nodded at her and handed her the same cart, the same checklist. "Morandi's gone," he said quietly. "Don't know what happened, but she's not coming back." Lorna nodded, her throat tight. She pushed her cart into the lobby and started her routine. Wipe the glass, mop the floors, stay invisible. But she wasn't invisible anymore. People looked at her. Whispers followed her like shadows. "That's the one." Her kid made Morandi lose her job. Ashford himself stepped in. Lorna kept her head down and worked faster. She was halfway through the West Wing when she heard footsteps behind her. Expensive shoes. Slow, deliberate. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Ms. Cartwright. His voice was quieter than she expected. Softer. She turned. Kael Ashford stood a few feet away, hands in the pockets of a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, dark, careful, were focused entirely on her. "Mr. Ashford." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. He hesitated, like he wasn't sure what to say. Like this was harder for him than buying buildings or closing deals. "I wanted to check on you," he said finally. "And your children. We're fine. Are you?" The question landed too gently, too real. Lorna's jaw tightened. "We're managing. Thank you for what you did yesterday." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." Her tone sharpened without her meaning it to. "You stopped something I couldn't. So, thank you." Kael's expression shifted. Something like pain flickered across his face. You were put in an impossible position, he said quietly. That wasn't your fault. It was my job to protect them. Lorna's voice cracked, and she hated herself for it. And I didn't. You did everything you could. I let her kneel. The words came out raw, broken. Kael took a step closer. You were trying to survive. That's not enough. It's everything. Lorna looked away, blinking back tears she refused to let fall in front of him. Why are you here, Mr. Ashford? He was quiet for a moment. I don't know, he admitted. That honesty, unexpected and unguarded, made her look up. He met her eyes. I just needed to see that you were okay. Lorna studied him, really looked at him for the first time. Underneath the wealth, the power, the perfectly tailored suit, there was something else. Grief. She recognized it. She'd seen it in the mirror often enough. We're okay, she said, softer this time. You don't have to worry about us. Kael nodded slowly, but he didn't move. I'd like to help, he said, if you'll let me. And there it was, the thing she'd been waiting for. The reason men like him showed up in the lives of women like her. Pity. Lorna's walls went up fast and sharp. I don't need charity. That's not what I'm offering. Then what are you offering? Kael hesitated. A job. A better one. Something stable. With benefits. Childcare included. Lorna's heart lurched. It was everything she needed, which was exactly why she couldn't take it. No. Kael blinked. No. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Ashford. But I don't take handouts. It's not a handout. It's a job. A job you're only offering because you feel sorry for me. That's not, isn't it? Lorna's voice was steady now, firm. You saw me at my lowest. You saw my daughter humiliated. And now you want to swoop in and fix it. That's pity. And I don't want it. Kael's jaw tightened. You're wrong. Am I? Yes. His voice was harder now, edged with something she couldn't name. I'm not offering because I pity you. I'm offering because I see you. Lorna's breath caught. I see a mother who would do anything for her children, Kael continued, his voice low and fierce. I see someone who's been beaten down by a system that doesn't care. And you're still standing. That's not something I pity. That's something I respect. Lorna stared at him, her defenses trembling. And maybe, Kael added quieter now, I'm offering because I need this as much as you do. What does that mean? He looked away, his hands curled into fists at his sides. It means I haven't felt anything in 3 years. And yesterday, when I saw your daughter, his voice broke. I felt everything. Silence stretched between them. Lorna's chest ached. Mr. Ashford. Kael. He looked at her. Just, Kael. She swallowed hard. Kael. I can't take your help. Not like this. It wouldn't be right. Why not? Because I need to do this on my own. Why? Because if I don't, her voice wavered. If I don't, then what kind of example am I setting for them? That we survive by depending on the mercy of people who have more than us. Kael shook his head slowly. That's not weakness, Lorna. That's being human. Hearing her name in his voice, low, careful, real, made something inside her crack. But she held firm. I'm sorry, she said. But no. Kael looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. He held it out to her. If you change your mind. Lorna didn't take it. He set it gently on the edge of her cleaning cart. Take care of yourself, Lorna, he said quietly. And then he turned and walked away. Lorna stood there, trembling, watching him disappear into the glass and marble. Her hands shook. She looked down at the card. Kael Ashford, CEO, Ashford Holdings. A phone number, an email, a lifeline. She picked it up, stared at it, and then slipped it into her pocket. That evening, Lorna sat at her tiny kitchen table, staring at a past due notice from her landlord. Final notice. Pay or vacate in 72 hours. She pressed her palms to her eyes and tried not to scream. Remy, Silas, and Dove were in the next room, playing a game with mismatched socks and a cardboard box. Their laughter drifted through the thin walls like music. She would not let them lose this home, even if it was small, even if the paint peeled and the heat barely worked. It was theirs. She pulled the card from her pocket, stared at it. Her pride was a living thing. It had kept her alive this long. But pride didn't pay rent. Lorna closed her eyes and made a choice she wasn't sure she'd ever forgive herself for. She picked up her phone and dialed. Kael answered on the second ring. "This is Ashford." His voice was crisp, professional. The voice of a man who lived behind walls. Lorna almost hung up, but then she heard Dove cough in the next room, a wet, rattling sound that had been getting worse all week, and her resolve hardened. "It's Lorna Cartwright." Silence, then softer. "Lorna." Just her name, but the way he said it, like he'd been hoping she'd call, made her chest tighten. She closed her eyes. "I'd like to talk about the job." Another pause. "Okay," Kael said quietly. "When? Tomorrow? After my shift? I'll come to you." "No." The word came out too fast. "I'll come to your office." She didn't want him in Lowfield. Didn't want him to see the peeling paint, the broken lock on the bathroom door, the way they lived. Some pride she still had left. "All right," Kael said. 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. "Lorna?" She waited. "Thank you," he said, "for calling." She hung up before she could respond. The next day, Lorna stood in front of the Ashford Holdings tower and felt impossibly small. 53 floors of steel and glass stretched toward the sky like a monument to everything she wasn't. She wore her only dress, a simple navy blue thing she'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. It was clean, pressed, but it didn't belong here. Neither did she. She took a breath and walked inside. The lobby was all marble and cold elegance. A receptionist with perfect hair and a perfect smile directed her to the elevator. 53rd floor. "Mr. Ashford is expecting you." Lorna nodded and stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed and the floor dropped away beneath her, she gripped the railing and tried to steady her breathing. "You're doing this for them. For Remy. For Silas. For Dove." The elevator climbed and climbed. When the doors finally opened, she stepped into a quiet, pristine hallway. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Everything was glass and light. A man in his early 40s, lean, sharp-eyed, kind-faced, approached her. "Ms. Cartwright." She nodded. "I'm Thane, Mr. Ashford's assistant. He's just finishing a call. He'll be with you in a moment." Thane led her to a sitting area near the windows and offered her water, coffee, tea. She declined all of it. She sat on the edge of a leather chair that probably cost more than her couch and folded her hands in her lap. A few minutes later, a door opened, and Kael stepped out. He'd shed his jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his elbows. He looked tired, human. When he saw her, something in his expression softened. "Lorna." She stood. "Mr. Ashford." "Kael," he corrected gently. She nodded but didn't repeat it. He gestured toward his office. "Please." She followed him inside. The office was massive, minimalist. A desk, a few chairs, windows that framed the whole city like a painting. But what caught her attention was the photo on his desk. Face down, Kael noticed her looking. "Sit," he said quietly. "Please." She sat across from him. He didn't go behind the desk. Instead, he took the chair beside her. Equal footing. It was a small thing, but it mattered. "I'm glad you called," Kael said. Lorna met his eyes. "I need the job. I know. I don't want charity. I know that too." She exhaled slowly. Then what is this? Kael leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He looked at her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. Not to fix, but to understand. This is me offering you a position in my company. Executive assistant to one of my regional directors. It's a real job, with real expectations. You'll work hard, but you'll be paid fairly. And your children will have access to on-site childcare, safe, vetted, free of charge. Lorna's throat tightened. Why? Because you're smart, resilient, and I don't hire people out of pity. I hire people who can do the work. You don't know if I can do the work. Then prove me right. She stared at him. He didn't look away. There's one condition, Kael added. Her stomach dropped. Here it comes. What? The position doesn't start for 2 weeks. I need you to spend that time training, learning the systems, and... He hesitated. I'd like you to bring the kids. Lorna frowned. Why? Kael's jaw tightened. He looked out the window. Because I want to make sure the childcare facility is right for them. And I want them to feel safe here before you start. It was a reasonable answer. But Lorna sensed there was more beneath it. Kael! She said his name carefully, testing it. What is this really about? He turned back to her. And for the first time, she saw past the armor. I lost my daughter 3 years ago, he said quietly. Lorna's breath caught. Her name was Iris. She was 7. Leukemia. Tears burned behind Lorna's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. I'm sorry, she whispered. Kael nodded. I haven't been around children since. I couldn't. It hurt too much. Then why now? He looked at her, really looked at her, because when I saw Dove on her knees, I saw Iris, and I felt something I thought I'd buried with her. What? Hope. The word hung in the air between them like a fragile thing. Lorna's chest ached. I don't want to use you or your children, Kael continued, his voice raw. But I'm asking, if you'll let me, to be part of their lives. Even just a little, because maybe helping them will help me remember how to be alive again. Lorna didn't know what to say, so she asked the only question that mattered. And if I say no, then the job is still yours, Kael said without hesitation. No strings. I meant what I said. You've earned it. She believed him, and that terrified her. Because it would be easier if he were a villain. Easier if this were just about money or power or control. But he wasn't. He was just a broken man, asking for a chance to heal. Just like her. Okay, she said softly. Kael blinked. Okay, I'll take the job, and I'll bring the kids. Relief washed over his face like sunrise. Thank you. Lorna nodded. But Kael? Yeah, if you hurt them, if you make them feel like charity cases or projects, I'm gone. And you'll never see us again. His expression turned solemn. Understood. She stood. He stood with her. They shook hands. And in that moment, hands clasped, eyes locked, something shifted. Something neither of them had words for yet. 2 days later, Lorna brought the triplets to Ashford Holdings. Remy was suspicious. Silas was curious. Dove clung to her mother's hand and didn't say a word. Kael met them in the lobby. He crouched down to their level. Hi, he said softly. Remy crossed his arms. Are you rich? Remy, Lorna started. But Kael smiled. It was small, hesitant, but real. Yeah, he said. I am. Why? I got lucky. And I worked hard. Do you have kids? The question hit like a punch. Kael's smile faltered. I did, he said quietly. Once. Remy frowned. What happened? Remy, that's enough, Lorna said firmly. But Kael shook his head. It's okay. He looked at Remy, this fierce, protective little boy, and answered honestly. She got sick. And she didn't get better. Remy considered this. That's sad, he said. Yeah, Kael whispered. It is. Dove stepped forward. She looked up at Kael with those wide, serious eyes. And then, without a word, she held out her stuffed rabbit. Kael stared at it. Her name is Clover, Dove said quietly. You can hold her if you're sad. Kael's vision blurred. He took the rabbit carefully, like it was made of glass. Thank you, he managed. Dove nodded solemnly, and Kael, Billionaire, Fortress Ghost, felt his heart crack open just a little more. Over the next 2 weeks, something unexpected happened. Kael didn't just train Lorna. He spent time with the triplets. He showed Remy how the elevators worked, taught Silas about the buildings he owned, sat with Dove in the childcare center, and listened as she explained the entire plot of her favorite cartoon. And slowly, so slowly he almost didn't notice, he started to laugh again. Lorna watched it happen, watched him come alive. And despite every wall she'd built, despite every reason she had to keep her distance, she started to fall. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Lorna had just finished her training session with a regional director, a sharp but kind woman named Petra, and was heading to the childcare center to pick up the triplets. She found Kael sitting on the floor. Dove was braiding his hair, or trying to. His hair was too short, but she was determined, her tiny fingers working with intense concentration. Remy was building a tower out of blocks. Silas was explaining, in great detail, why dinosaurs were better than dragons. And Kael was listening, really listening. His eyes were soft, his posture relaxed. He looked like a man who'd found something he didn't know he'd been searching for. Lorna's heart clenched. She stood in the doorway, watching, not wanting to interrupt. But Dove spotted her. Mama, look, I'm making Mr. Kael pretty. Kael's eyes flicked to Lorna. A faint blush colored his cheeks. She's very talented, he said. Lorna smiled despite herself. I can see that. Remy looked up. Mom, did you know Mr. Kael has a helicopter? I did not. He said maybe one day he'd show us. Lorna's smile faded slightly. She looked at Kael. He stood, gently extracting himself from Dove's styling session. Only if it's okay with your mom, he said quickly. Lorna hesitated. This was happening too fast. They were getting too close. And when it ended, because things like this always ended, it would hurt. Not just her, though. We'll see, she said carefully. Kael nodded. He understood. Kids, go grab your stuff, Lorna said. Time to head home. The triplets groaned but obeyed, running off to collect their backpacks. Lorna and Kael stood alone. Thank you, she said quietly, for spending time with them. I should be thanking you. For what? Kael looked at her, really looked at her. For letting me feel something again. The air between them shifted. Lorna's pulse quickened. Before she could respond, Dove came running back. Not with her backpack, but with something else. A small bracelet. Beaded, handmade, pink and purple. Mr. Kael, I made this for you, Dove said shyly. Kael crouched down. For me? She nodded. So you won't be sad anymore. He took it carefully, his hands trembling. And then he saw it. One of the beads. A tiny, painted ladybug. His breath stopped. Iris had a bracelet just like this. He'd bought it for her at a hospital gift shop during one of her treatments. She'd worn it every day until... Kael? Lorna's voice pulled him back. He looked up. His eyes were wet. Sorry, he whispered. He couldn't finish. Dove frowned. Don't you like it? I love it, Kael said, his voice breaking. He slipped it onto his wrist. It's perfect. Dove beamed. Kael stood slowly, his composure hanging by a thread. I need a minute, he murmured to Lorna. And before she could respond, he walked out. Lorna found him 10 minutes later. He was standing on the balcony outside his office, gripping the railing, staring out at the city. His shoulders were shaking. She almost turned back. But then she heard it. A sound so raw, so broken, it stopped her in her tracks. He was crying. Not silent tears. Deep, wrenching sobs. Lorna's heart broke. She stepped forward. "Kael!" He didn't turn. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I didn't mean to." "Stop." She moved beside him. "You don't have to apologize." He shook his head. "You don't understand." "Then tell me." He looked at her. His face was raw, stripped bare. "Iris made bracelets like that," he said. "At the hospital. During chemo. She'd give them to the nurses. To me. She said they were good luck charms." Lorna's throat tightened. "She died wearing one," Kael continued. "And I buried it with her because I couldn't stand to look at it." A tear slipped down Lorna's cheek. "But now Dove made me one," Kael whispered. "And it feels like maybe Iris sent her. Like maybe she's telling me it's okay to feel again." "Oh, Kael." He turned to her fully. "I'm terrified, Lorna." "Of what?" "Of losing them. Of losing you. Of letting myself care, and then—" His voice broke. Lorna reached out. She took his hand. "I'm terrified too," she whispered. He stared at her. "I've spent 3 years protecting my kids from a world that doesn't care about people like us," she said. "And now you're here. And you're kind. And you're good. And I don't know what to do with that." "You don't have to do anything." "Yes, I do. Because if I let myself fall for you—" She stopped. Swallowed. "If I let them fall for you, and you leave, it'll destroy us." Kael stepped closer. "I'm not going anywhere. You don't know that." "Yes," he said firmly. "I do." His hand came up, hesitant, and brushed a tear from her cheek. "I know what it's like to lose everything," he said softly. "And I would never do that to you. Or to them." Lorna closed her eyes. "I'm scared." "So am I." She opened her eyes. They were standing so close now. She could feel the warmth of him. The steadiness. "Lorna," he whispered. "Yeah? Can I try something?" She nodded. Slowly, so slowly she could have stopped him. Kael leaned in and kissed her. It was soft, gentle, tentative, like a question. Lorna answered. She kissed him back, and for the first time in years, she let herself hope. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were trembling. Kael rested his forehead against hers. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted. Lorna smiled through her tears. "Neither do I." "Then maybe we figure it out together." She nodded. Together. Behind them, the city glittered. And for a moment, just a moment, everything felt possible. The next 2 weeks felt like living in a dream Lorna was afraid to wake from. Kael didn't just offer her a job. He offered her a world she'd never imagined. Not with money. Not with things. With presence. He showed up. Every morning, he'd stop by the childcare center before his meetings. He'd ruffle Remy's hair, challenge Silas to a riddle, and listen to Dove's increasingly elaborate stories about Clover the rabbit's adventures. And every evening, he'd find Lorna, sometimes in her new office, clean bright, with a window that overlooked the harbor, sometimes in the lobby, once in the parking garage, where she'd been sitting in her old car, trying to convince it to start. He'd knocked on the window. She'd rolled it down. "Need a ride?" he'd asked. She'd wanted to say no, but he'd smiled, really smiled, and she'd found herself saying yes. They'd talked the whole way to Lowfield, about everything and nothing, about her childhood in foster care, about his parents long gone, about dreams they'd buried and fears they carried. When he pulled up to her building, he didn't comment on the graffiti or the broken streetlight. He just looked at her and said, "Same time tomorrow?" And she'd nodded, because somewhere between the grief and the hope, between the fear and the falling, she'd started to trust him. One Saturday, Kael did something unexpected. He invited them to his house. "It's not a mansion," he'd said quickly, like he was worried she'd think he was showing off. "Just a place outside the city. There's a yard. Trees. I thought the kids might like it." Lorna had hesitated, but Remy had overheard and immediately started lobbying. "Please, Mom. Please. I've never seen a yard." So she'd agreed. Kael picked them up in a car that didn't scream wealth. Just a clean, safe SUV with room for all of them. The drive took 40 minutes. The house sat on the edge of a forest, surrounded by trees that blazed with autumn colors. It wasn't a mansion, but it was beautiful. Whoa, human. The triplets spilled out of the car and ran straight for the yard, their laughter echoing through the quiet. Lorna stood beside Kael, watching them. "This is where you live?" she asked. "I used to," Kael said quietly. "Before Iris died. After. I couldn't be here anymore. Too many memories. I moved to a penthouse downtown. I haven't been back in 2 years." Lorna looked at him. "Why now?" He met her eyes. "Because I'm tired of running from her." Her chest ached. "Come on," Kael said softly. "Let me show you something." He led her around the side of the house to a garden. And there, beneath a willow tree, was a small stone bench. Engraved on it were the words, "For Iris, who taught me how to love." Lorna's breath caught. Kael sat on the bench. After a moment, she sat beside him. "I planted this tree the week after she died," he said. "I thought it would help. It didn't. So I stopped coming. And now I think maybe she'd want me to remember her here. Not with pain, but with love." Lorna reached over and took his hand. He squeezed it. They sat in silence, watching the triplets chase each other through the falling leaves. "They're beautiful," Kael said. "They're everything," Lorna whispered. He turned to her. "So are you." Her heart stuttered. "Kael, I mean it." His voice was low, steady. "You're the strongest person I've ever met. And I don't just care about your kids, Lorna. I care about you." She felt the tears come, hot and unbidden. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Do what?" "Let someone in." Kael's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "Then let me go first," he said. And before she could ask what he meant, he leaned in and kissed her. Not like the first time. Tentative, questioning. This was deeper. "Sure, a promise." Lorna kissed him back, her hand coming up to his face. And for the first time in years, she let herself believe that maybe she deserved this. That maybe it was okay to want more than survival. That maybe love wasn't just for other people. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathless. "Mom! Mr. Kael! Come play!" Dove's voice rang out across the yard. They looked at each other and laughed. "Come on," Kael said, standing and offering his hand. Lorna took it, and together they ran toward the children. They spent the rest of the day playing. Kael taught Remy how to skip stones on the pond behind the house. Silas found a frog and delivered a full scientific lecture about amphibians. Dove made a crown out of leaves and placed it on Kael's head. "You're the king," she declared. "Then who are you?" Kael asked. "The queen, obviously." Lorna laughed so hard she cried. As the sun set, they sat on a blanket in the yard, eating sandwiches Kael had packed. Remy leaned against Lorna. Silas sprawled on the grass. Dove curled up beside Kael, her head on his shoulder. "And Kael." Kael looked at Lorna over the top of Dove's head and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Lorna's throat tightened. She mouthed back, "Thank you too." That night, after she'd tucked the triplets into bed, Lorna sat on her couch and stared at her phone. Kael had texted, "Today was the best day I've had in 3 years." She smiled and typed back, "Same." A moment later, another text came. "I'm falling for you, Lorna." Her breath caught. She stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered over the keys. And then, heart pounding, she wrote, "I'm falling for you too." She hit send and closed her eyes, because for the first time in her life, Lorna Cartwright let herself fall. The rumor started small. A whisper in a break room, a smirk in an elevator, a comment left on a local gossip blog. Single mother sleeps her way into Ashford's company and his bed. By Monday morning, it had spread like wildfire. Lorna felt it the moment she walked into the building. The stares, the sudden silences, the way conversations stopped when she passed. Jolie, the kind co-worker who'd witnessed the humiliation weeks ago, pulled her aside in the hallway. "Lorna, I'm so sorry. Someone's saying things. Awful things." "What things?" Jolie hesitated. "That you're using Kael. That you traded your body for the job." Lorna felt the floor drop out from under her. "That's not true. I know. But people are talking, and..." Jolie's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're saying Vex Morandi is the one spreading it." Lorna's blood turned to ice. "She's still in the city?" "Apparently. And she's angry." Lorna made it through the morning on autopilot. But at lunch, her phone rang. It was Remy's school. "Miss Cartwright, I'm afraid there's been an incident." Her heart stopped. "What happened?" "Remy got into a fight. Another child said some things about you and Mr. Ashford, and Remy, well, he defended you. But we have a zero-tolerance policy." "Is he hurt?" "No, but he's suspended for 3 days." Lorna closed her eyes. "I'll be right there." She found Remy sitting outside the principal's office, arms crossed, lips split, eyes blazing with tears he refused to shed. "Remy, he said you were a gold digger." Remy shouted. "He said you were using Mr. Kael for money. So I hit him." Lorna's heart shattered. She knelt in front of him. "Baby, you can't hit people. He was lying." "I know." Her voice cracked. "But fighting doesn't fix it." "Then what does?" Remy's voice broke. "How do we make them stop saying things about you?" Lorna had no answer. She pulled him into her arms and held him while he cried. By the time she got back to the office, the damage was done. Petra, the regional director, called her in. "Lorna, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay, is there a personal relationship between you and Kael Ashford?" Lorna's throat tightened. She could lie, deny it, protect herself, but she was so tired of hiding. "Yes," she said quietly. Petra sighed. "That complicates things. I didn't sleep with him for this job." "I believe you. But perception matters. And right now, people think you did. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to be careful. For your sake. And for his." Lorna left the office feeling like she was drowning. She made it to the parking garage before the tears came. She sat in her car, hands shaking, and let herself break. She'd been a fool. A fool to think this could work. A fool to think someone like Kael could love someone like her without the world tearing them apart. Her phone buzzed. "Kael, can we talk?" She stared at the message and typed back, "Not now." But Kael didn't listen. 10 minutes later, he was at her car door, knocking gently. She didn't want to look at him, but she unlocked the door. He slid into the passenger seat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I heard what happened," Kael said quietly. "At Remy's school. Everyone's heard everything." Her voice was hollow. "Lorna, they think I'm using you. I don't care what they think." "Well, I do." She turned to him, eyes blazing. "Because it's not just about me anymore. It's about my kids. Remy got suspended because some kid called me a whore." Kael's face went pale. "What? You didn't know?" Lorna laughed bitterly. "Vex is spreading rumors, and now my son is fighting at school, and my daughter won't talk, and everyone at this company thinks I slept my way into a job I actually earned. I'll fix this. How? Lorna's voice cracked. How do you fix this, Kael? You can't buy your way out of this one. He flinched. She regretted it immediately. But the damage was done. I didn't mean. No. Kael's voice was hard. You did. He looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw the hurt in his eyes. You think that's all I do? Throw money at problems, isn't it? That's not fair. None of this is fair. Lorna shouted. You get to walk away from this unscathed. You're Kael Ashford. But me? I'm just the cleaning lady who got lucky. Stop. His voice was low, dangerous. Stop putting words in other people's mouths. And stop punishing me for caring about you. Lorna's breath caught. I can't do this, she whispered. Can't do what? This. Us. It's too much. Too fast. And my kids are getting hurt. So what are you saying? She forced herself to look at him. I think we need space. Kael stared at her like she'd struck him. You're pushing me away. I'm protecting my children. By running. By surviving. Tears streamed down her face. That's all I know how to do, Kael. I survive. And you make me want more. You make me hope. And I can't afford hope. Because when it's gone, it'll destroy me. Kael's jaw tightened. So that's it? You're just giving up? I'm being realistic. You're being a coward. The word hung between them like a blade. Lorna's chest heaved. Get out. Lorna, get out. Kael stared at her for one more agonizing moment. Then he opened the door and left. Lorna sat alone in the silence and finally let herself shatter. Have you ever pushed someone away because you were afraid of getting hurt? Drop a comment and don't forget to subscribe and share. Sometimes we need to hear we're not alone in our fear. Kael didn't go back to his office. He drove out of the city, past the suburbs, all the way to the house he'd avoided for 2 years. The house where Iris had laughed, where she died, where he'd buried his heart. He sat in the driveway for 20 minutes before he could bring himself to go inside. The air smelled stale. Dust covered the furniture. But everything was exactly as he'd left it. He walked through the rooms like a ghost and ended up in Iris's bedroom. Her bed was still made. Her stuffed animals lined up on the shelf. Her drawings pinned to the wall. Kael sat on the edge of her bed and picked up the pillow. It didn't smell like her anymore. That realization broke something in him. He'd spent 3 years keeping everything frozen, preserved, as if by not touching it, he could keep her alive. But she was gone, and he was still here, alone. He pulled out his phone and stared at Lorna's name. His thumb hovered over the call button, but he didn't press it, because maybe she was right. Maybe he didn't know how to fix things without money. Maybe he was too broken to love someone properly. Maybe. His phone buzzed. A text, but not from Lorna. Thane, you need to see this. A link followed. Kael opened it. It was a video, posted on a gossip site. Grainy. Clearly recorded without permission. It showed Vex Morandi, sitting in what looked like a bar, talking to someone off camera. Ruined my career, so I'm ruining hers. Let's see how long Ashford keeps his little charity case when everyone thinks she's a prostitute. The person filming laughed. You're evil. I'm honest, Vex sneered. People like her don't belong in our world. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. The video ended. Kael's hands shook. Rage, white-hot and pure, flooded through him. He forwarded the video to his lawyer with a single message. Destroy her. Then he stood and made a choice. He wasn't going to let Lorna push him away. Not without a fight. Lorna spent the evening in silence. The triplets sensed something was wrong. They were quieter than usual. Remy didn't ask about Kael. Silas didn't talk about dinosaurs. Dove just held Clover and watched her mother with worried eyes. After she put them to bed, Lorna sat on the couch and stared at the wall. Her phone sat beside her. No calls, no texts. She'd told Kael to leave. And he had, just like she'd asked. So why did it feel like she'd made the worst mistake of her life? A knock at the door startled her. She wasn't expecting anyone. She looked through the peephole and froze. Kael. He stood in the dim hallway, still in his work clothes, looking exhausted and determined. Lorna's heart hammered. She opened the door. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you." "Kael, I told you." "I know what you told me." His voice was firm but not angry. "And I'm here anyway." She stared at him. "Can I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. He walked into her small living room and turned to face her. "I found out who's been spreading the rumors," he said. "I already know. It's Vex." She recorded herself admitting it, bragging about it. "My legal team is handling it. By tomorrow, she'll be facing defamation charges. And I'm making sure every outlet that published those lies prints a retraction." Lorna's breath caught. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." Kael stepped closer. "Because what she did was wrong. And I'm not going to let her destroy you." Lorna's eyes filled with tears. "But that's not why I'm here," Kael continued. "Then why?" He took a breath. "I'm here because you were right." She blinked. "What?" "I do try to fix things with money. I do try to control outcomes. Because for 3 years, that's all I've known how to do. But with you," his voice broke, "with you, I don't want to fix anything. I just want to be here. However you'll let me." Lorna shook her head, tears spilling over. "Kael, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm choosing." He closed the distance between them. "I'm choosing you. I'm choosing Remy, Silas, and Dove. I'm choosing this. Even if it's messy. Even if it's hard. Even if people talk. They'll always talk. Let them." His hands came up to cradle her face. "I don't care what they say. I only care what you say." Lorna's chest heaved. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I. What if we fail? What if we don't?" She closed her eyes. "I've spent my whole life protecting myself," she said quietly. "Protecting my kids. I don't know how to let someone in." "Then let me prove you can trust me." Kael's thumb brushed away her tears. "Not with money. Not with power. Just with me. Showing up. Every day. For as long as you'll let me." Lorna opened her eyes and saw him. Not the billionaire. Not the title. Not the tower. Just a man who'd lost everything and was brave enough to risk his heart again. Just like her. "I love you," Kael whispered. Lorna's breath stopped. "I know it's fast," he continued. "I know it's terrifying. But I love you, Lorna. And I love your children. And if you'll give me a chance, just one chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." Lorna felt the wall she'd built around her heart crack and crumble. She thought of Remy, of Silas, of Dove, of the life she wanted for them. Not just survival, love. "I love you too," she whispered. Kael's eyes filled with tears. And then she kissed him, hard, desperately, like she was drowning and he was air. He kissed her back, his arms wrapping around her, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying. "So what now?" Lorna asked. Kael smiled through his tears. "Now we figure it out. Together." She nodded. Together. 3 months later. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Kael's house, their house now, painting everything gold. Lorna stood in the kitchen barefoot, flipping pancakes while Dove sat on the counter beside her, narrating the process like a cooking show host. "And now Mama adds the chocolate chips," Dove announced to an invisible audience. This is the most important part. Lorna smiled. The most important, huh? Uh-huh. Mr. Kael said so. Did he now? I absolutely did, Kael said, walking in with Remy and Silas trailing behind him, all three covered in dirt. Lorna raised an eyebrow. Do I want to know? We were building a fort, Remy said proudly. More like digging a hole to China, Silas corrected. It's a strategic excavation, Kael said with mock seriousness. Lorna laughed, a sound that had become easier, fuller, in the months since she'd stopped running, since she'd let herself be loved. Go wash up, she said. Breakfast in 5. The boys ran off. Kael lingered. He walked up behind Lorna, wrapped his arms around her waist, and rested his chin on her shoulder. Good morning, he murmured. Good morning. Dove made a face. You guys are always hugging. Is that a bad thing? Kael asked. Dove considered this. No, but it's weird. Lorna and Kael both laughed. Go set the table, baby, Lorna said. Dove hopped down and skipped off. Kael turned Lorna to face him. Hi, he said softly. Hi. He kissed her. Slow, sweet. 3 months in, and it still felt like magic. I have something for you, Kael said. Kael, you just bought me a car last week. It's not something I bought. He pulled a small envelope from his pocket. Lorna took it confused. Inside was a single piece of paper. A deed. To the house. Her breath caught. Kael, it's in your name, he said quietly. Yours and the kids. So you never have to worry about losing your home again. So you always have a place that's yours. Tears filled her eyes. This is too much. It's not nearly enough. He cupped her face. You gave me my life back, Lorna. Let me give you security. Not as charity. As love. She kissed him, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. After breakfast, they all piled into the car. Today was important. They drove to Crestmore Memorial Park and walked together to a spot beneath a willow tree. Iris's tree. Kael had started coming here again. At first alone, then with Lorna, and finally with the triplets. He knelt beside the bench and placed a small bouquet of wildflowers on the ground. Dove knelt beside him. Hi, Iris, she said softly. It's me again. Dove. Kael's throat tightened. Over the past months, Dove had started talking to Iris, telling her about school, about Clover, about the fort they were building. At first, it had broken Kael's heart. Now, it healed it. I brought you something, Dove continued. She pulled out a bracelet. Beaded, handmade, carefully crafted. I made this one special, Dove said. It has a ladybug, like the one on Mr. Kael's bracelet. So you match. She placed it gently on the bench. Kael closed his eyes, tears slipping free. Lorna's hand found his. Remy and Silas stood quietly beside them. I think she'd like you guys, Kael said, his voice rough. We like her too, Remy said simply. And somehow, that was enough. That evening, after the kids were asleep, Kael and Lorna sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't walked through that lobby that day? Kael asked. Lorna was quiet for a moment. I think I would have survived, she said. I always do. But I wouldn't have lived. Kael looked at her. You taught me the difference, she continued, between surviving and living, between protecting myself and letting myself be loved. You taught me too, Kael whispered. You and the kids. You brought me back. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm glad we found each other. So am I. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Kael shifted. Lorna? Yeah, there's one more thing I want to ask you. She lifted her head, curious. Kael reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Lorna's breath stopped. I know it's only been a few months, Kael said, his voice trembling. And I know we've been through hell to get here. But I also know I don't want to spend another day without you. Without them. He opened the box. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring. Lorna Cartwright, he said, his eyes shining. Will you marry me? Lorna's hands flew to her mouth. Tears spilled over. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Kael slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her like she was his everything. Because she was. Inside, 3 small faces peeked through the window. I told you he was gonna ask her, Remy whispered. You did not, Silas hissed. Did too. Dove pressed her finger to her lips. This is a romantic moment. They watched as their mother and Kael held each other under the stars. And Dove smiled. Iris would have liked this, she whispered. Remy and Silas looked at her. How do you know? Silas asked. Dove shrugged. I just do. And maybe she was right. Because somewhere, in the space between grief and joy, loss and love, a little girl smiled and let go. 6 months later, the wedding was small. Just family, close friends. Thane stood as best man, Jolie as maid of honor, and 3 children stood at the front, Remy, Silas, and Dove, holding rings and flowers and hearts full of hope. When Kael and Lorna exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. I promise to show up, Kael said, his voice steady. Every single day. To love you. To love them. To build a life where we don't just survive. We thrive. Lorna's voice shook as she spoke. I promise to let you in. To trust you. To believe that love isn't something I have to earn. It's something I deserve. And so do my children. They kissed, and the room erupted in applause. That night, as they tucked the triplets into bed, Dove looked up at Kael. Are you our dad now? She asked. Kael's heart swelled. If you'll have me, he said softly. Dove nodded. Okay, but you have to read us stories. Deal. Remy grinned. And build more forts. Obviously. Silas adjusted his glasses and listened to my dinosaur facts. Always. Lorna stood in the doorway, watching. Kael looked at her and mouthed, I love you. She mouthed back, I love you too. Later, as they lay in bed, Lorna whispered, Do you think we'll be okay? Kael pulled her close. I think we'll be better than okay. How do you know? Because we chose each other. Every day. That's all love is, Lorna. Choosing. Again and again. She smiled in the darkness. Then I choose you. And I choose you. And in that quiet moment, in a house full of laughter and love and second chances, they both finally came home.